Good morning, folks. This is David here with Expat Audio, and I just thought I'd show you a short video here. Might have to hack this one together as I do it, but what you're looking at here is the TinyVU board. This is a version 3.0 that we did of it. I think I've explained in other Expat Audio live videos of all the changes. And one of the things we learned along the way, I'm not sure if I can be able to show this, but we finished on version 3.1, but we have a load of 3.0 PCBs here, so that was a bit of a pain for us, and so I had to find a way to work around the 3.0 boards. And one of the problems with 3.0 is there's a ground pin here on the MSP430, this last one, that didn't actually get reflowed to ground on the rest of the board because ground didn't flow due to some copper fill settings between these two pins, and that's been fixed on 3.1. But what it means is I have a lot of boards that basically need this pin here connected to ground. Now, ground's available in various places on this PCB, and so what I figured to myself is I would do a short video showing how we can take some hookup wire, take it from this pin and apply it to one of the places where ground is. Now, ground can be found on this PCB either at this point here, which is actually a this last space here is actually for a capacitor to ground, but we don't use it because we do the filtering inside in the part in the digital domain. So I'm going to run basically a small bit of wire, a hookup wire as we call it, from this ground pin over to here. Alright, so let's do that. And I'm going to be playing with some of the lighting here as well. I've got a new LED lighting array that I made. Let's see if I can show you guys. It gets bright, it gets really bright. Let me turn it down. There we go. So you can see that's just basically a bunch of light strips run in parallel, and I run them from a bench power supply. But it's cheaper than buying a big proper light setup. I was using my studio lighting that I had for the other room when I'm not in the lab, and it just turned out that it was a lot to carry in here, right? The lighting stands and everything, where if all I'm doing is working in one particular area, there's just no point. Alright, so let's start off by looking at the hookup wire I have. So this is a wire wrapping wire. Here's the wire we're going to use, and essentially I'm going to wire it and strip it and so on, so that it does a very small U. I think that's what I'll probably do with it. Where's my tweezers here? Hold it a little better so you don't have to look at my sausage fingers. We're essentially going to go from this point here. So I'm not sure if you guys can see that very well, over to this point here. There we go. So I now have my little bridge, and okay, I'm going to run it between this pad by here, so I point with my tweezers, this pad by here and this leg by here. So I'm going to solder down the pad first. And what we'll do once this is done as well is we'll actually maybe put a spot of hot glue down as well, just to hold it in place. But the other thing is for this board is that we want to make sure, if you order one of these and you get one with a small wire fix like this, don't panic. It's very common in electronics these days. Maybe not in consumer high volume electronics, but in a lot of other electronics, there's usually a little bodge wire here or there. Okay, and in fact, one could argue that at this point now we could probably put a blob of hot glue on just to hold it in place, but I haven't fired up the hot glue gun yet, so we'll wait a little while. Let's make sure that my bridge is flat as well. That looks pretty flat to me in terms of not picking up across the PCB. Let's twist this back up a little. Alright. Maybe cut the end off this. Cut the end just so it doesn't bridge over any other circuits. Bridge over troubled circuits. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay. I'm going to add a little solder onto this pad by here, just so that ground wire has something to hook up to. And you can see there's a fair bit of flux as well, so I'll have to clean that up a little later. I'm not one for leaving flux sitting around on a PCB. Okay, that's one side tied down. Now let's clean up the other. Okay, so the thing with wire wrap is that it can deform quite easily, and you can use this to your advantage as well. So if I just tilt this up a little like this, it's going to want to push up against my... So for instance, if I create it's almost like a spring where it's pushing against the direction I want to go, you can see now that, I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but the wire that is conducting is now pressing up against that ground pin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to solder that. And actually, there's one more thing I want to do. I just want to bend this so it doesn't... I don't want it to short against any other pins. So it looks like that'll be fine. Let's clean the tip on that. A wee bit of solder. Warm up the joint. And we dab a solder later, and I just want to make sure that's a good connection. There we go. And so what I'll do once I've done this is I'm actually going to get the multimeter out and make sure that that ground pin is actually grounded, but that the pins next to it are not, for instance. And so let's have a look. Where is that? Wish I had a magnifying glass to show you guys. So let's cut the end off that wire. So now you guys can see I've been able to take this ground point, connect it to there with a little blue wire, and that shouldn't come off. It's not a weak connection in any way, and there's nothing in the physical setup of the board or anything that's going to place any kind of pressure like that on there. One of my biggest tips I give people is that you need a good everybody needs a good multimeter, one that they can trust the results from, but it always helps to have a bunch of cheap multimeters sitting around as well, ones which can do basic conductance tests and so on, or look for basic voltage levels. Nothing too fancy. And so I'm going to set up a conductance test here, so you should be able to hear it when I cross these two together. There we go. Alright, so let's just test ground to ground connections here. So if I want to take ground, which is on this pin over here, and ground is on this pin over here. Way, okay, so now let's try ground over here. Let's try ground over here now. Okay, so now when I hook up the board, the MSP430 processor that's on there should light up beautifully. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to test the LED array to make sure that they've all soldered correctly. So I'm going to put my multimeter into, I'm not sure if you guys can see this, into diode mode. And what that'll do is it acts as a constant current source and just drives enough current to light up an LED. So let's have a quick look, shall we? Here's my ground connection at the bottom of the board. And let's try LED 1, 2. In fact, let me switch the lights off for this one. There we go. how much darker that is. Okay, we'll go this way so it's easier for you guys to see. LED, 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 LED. So each of those has worked now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now when you guys receive these, once I finally get them on the online store and shipping, it'll be up to you to decide whether you want to create simple wire bridges over so that you can use this board, or because this is actually a re-grooved, you can actually split this off and only mount this PCB to your front panel, which is really nice because it's small, and simply run, you know, a wire, some IDC wire over, you know, directly, so you can use ribbon cable to connect all these across, and then, you know, the rest of this board can sit anywhere in your product, and then this is the only front panel space. We calculated, you know, if you wanted to make like a one unit, you know, level meter, which, you know, how many of these could you fit in? I think in like a 19-inch rack, and we calculated like 38 of them or something. It was ridiculous. So you know, if you do want like a 16-channel VU metering setup or something, let us know, and you know, we can ship 16 of these boards. They stack nicely, they all take the same power supply, and you simply bring in a single-ended signal into it. Alright, so that concludes this, what was supposed to be a short video is now 15 minutes long. But if you do have any questions, drop us a note on our Facebook group, www.expataudio.com, or over at on the YouTube channel as well. It's the same person, me, picking up all the messages. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks again.